Greetings, my name is Elizabeth Coble. I'll be talking about my findings in the Oxford Academic and Project Muse databases for this week's video. I used two different search terms in both databases, Operation Market Garden and World War II Allied Intelligence. There were many results for each term, and I quickly put together a source list of 5 items. 4 were book chapters and 1 was a journal article. I had a hard time getting down to 3 sources to highlight for this video, so I'm including all 5 for different reasons. I'll first discuss 2 of the chapters, both written by Stephen Casey, and both from his book, The War Beat, Europe, the American Media at War Against Nazi Germany. In chapter 19, titled Into the Reich, it was mostly about the last few months of the war in Europe, but it did tie in the relationships of senior Allied leaders, including the infighting between British Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery and U.S. Generals Omar Bradley and George Patton, as reflected in Operation Market Garden. But in Chapter 17, titled In Germany's Border, Casey included a section on the press coverage of Operation Market Garden, mostly through the eyes of Walter Cronkite, who was an embedded reporter with the 101st Airborne Division. The 101st was one of 2 U.S. airborne divisions that participated in the operation. Both chapters provided different and interesting perspectives. Another book chapter was Reevaluating Combat Cohesion, the British Second Army in the Northwest European Campaign of the Second World War by Jonathan Fennell. This was in a book titled Frontline, Combat and Cohesion in the 21st Century. As the chapter title implies, his focus was on the morale and unit cohesion of the British Second Army. The British Second Army led the ground element of Operation Market Garden. His conclusion was very interesting, that even though the operation was a failure, the troops blamed it on poor leadership and poor concept, rather than seeing their efforts as poorly executed. The journal article I selected was by Jeroen de Wolf, titled The Many Meanings of Freedom, the Debate on the Legitimacy of Colonialism in the Dutch Resistance, 1940 to 1949. He's a Belgian scholar who specializes in Dutch culture. His topic is much broader than my interest, but for Operation Market Garden, the role of the Dutch resistance plays an integral part of the intelligence story. Written in 2011, enough time has passed to allow a more objective and critical look at the Dutch resistance during the war. The specifics about Operation Market Garden provided more context, but the overall view of the Dutch resistance and the evolving assessment of the role of the Dutch resistance is very helpful to my research. The final one I selected was the evolution of U.S., British, Dutch, and NATO warning institutions in the book Strategic Warning Intelligence by John Gentry and Joseph Gordon. While I found this on the Project Muse database, this was one of the locked items, but I was so interested in reading it that I searched and found it on JSTOR. There were multiple chapters that I could have selected, but I focused on the post-World War II one because it included information about the British, U.S., and Dutch intelligence organizations at the beginning of the Cold War. These relationships were a direct reflection of the relationships they had during World War II, including during Operation Market Garden, which is why I thought that time might be interesting. So it was interesting to see those relationships as how they evolved post-war. All 5 of these works, found in the Oxford Academic and the Project Muse databases, provided insights into different aspects of my primary area of study, intelligence and Operation Market Garden. They were varied in perspectives. They were written from different Allied points of view and not just the U.S. perspective. And it was the first time for me to use these databases, so a great introduction to them both.